Hi, everyone. This is D. Knight coming to you from New York City, but taking you to Nicaragua, or as I call it, my Nicaraguita. Today I'm reading you a chapter from my book, my Whirlwind Lives, Navigating Decades of Storms. This chapter tells of my 3 years working with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. Um, it starts out with a picture that I'm going to tell you about because the picture is so important. It shows CIA pilot Eugene Hassanfus being taken captive by a pair of Sandinista soldiers, and it has an inset that's a poster that I'll read to you. Nicaraguan Sandinistas shot down a CIA cargo plane loaded with 70 Soviet-made AK-47 rifles and 100,000 rounds of ammunition, rocket grenades, and other supplies for the Contras in October 1986. It was piloted by Eugene Hassanfus, a former Marine who flew CIA supply missions during the Vietnam War. Hassanfus would later tell his Nicaraguan captors that he had flown more than 10 such missions. The inset poster, it's actually a big billboard that was prominent in several different places in Managua and around the country. The billboard has the caption, more than a battalion of yours, blonde invader, will bite the dust in our rugged mountains. The Sandinista government pardoned and released Hassanfus on December 17, 1986. I noticed the billboard when I first came to Nicaragua in 1987. My chapter starts out with a famous love song to Nicaragua by Nicaraguan revolutionary troubadour Luis Enrique Mejia Godoy. I'm going to sing it to you. Bear with me. I hope you can stand it. I'm inspired to do it. Ay, Nicaragua, Nicaragüita, la flor más linda de mi querer, abonada con la bendita Nicaragüita, sangre de Diriangen. Ay, Nicaragua, sos más dulcita que la mielita de Tamagas. Pero ahora que ya sos libre, Nicaragüita, yo te quiero mucho más. Pero ahora que ya sos libre, Nicaragüita, yo te quiero mucho más. Thank you for your patience. It's not every time that you're going to get me to sing. In fact, that might be the only time. Now I'll tell the story. The Sandinista National Liberation Front toppled the U.S.-backed Somoza dictatorship in 1979 after a fierce guerrilla war that lasted more than a decade. They immediately instituted a massive land reform program, distributing most of the country's land to poor peasants after taking over the property of the Somoza family and its supporters. In 1980, the Sandinistas launched a literacy campaign, sending more than 100,000 teachers across the country to develop basic literacy for the whole population of about 3.5 million people. Both adults and children, winning the UNESCO Literacy Award. The country's illiteracy rate dropped from over 50% to under 12% in the campaign's first year. UNESCO also recognized Nicaragua's exceptional health progress under the Sandinista. UNESCO stands for United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization. Average life expectancy in 1961, when the FSLN was founded, was 48 years. It rose to 60 by 1984 after 5 years of revolution. By 2016, it was 75. Before 1979, more than 90% of health resources went to just 10% of the population. The Sandinistas established a free national health service available to all Nicaraguans. they launched a health brigadista program with Sandinista youth to provide basic health education across the country. They built hundreds of new primary health care facilities and trained thousands of new health professionals with help from a corps of Cuban doctors. Other achievements of the revolution included improved rural and urban working conditions, free unionization for all workers, price controls for basic commodities, improved public services and housing conditions, free education for all, protection of democratic liberties, equality for women, and a non-aligned foreign policy. The Sandinista Popular Army, based on its own revolutionary forces, replaced Somoza's National Guard. Neighborhood-based committees to defend the revolution, pretty much copied from Cuba, helped with food distribution, medical canvassing, and coordinated neighborhood-based militias. The Sandinistas founded a national development bank to support agriculture and industry and attracted support from Sweden, France, Spain, Italy, and the USSR, the Soviet Union, which still existed at that time. All the help was desperately needed. The Sandinistas faced an embargo as well as a counter-revolutionary war sponsored by Reagan's Washington. I went to Nicaragua in 1987 to help the Sandinista revolution as part of Technica, a group of North Americans who offered technical skills to bolster the young revolution. As a worker expert in computer-based publishing, also known as desktop publishing, I helped upgrade the Sandinista national newspaper Barricada using personal computers, laser printers, and plain paper, all readily available on the world market, sidestepping the U.S. effort to strangle the revolution. It was a wonderful opportunity for me and a fabulous experience. For 3 years, I lived and worked with Sandinistas and ordinary Nicaraguans while witnessing the revolutionary process. Despite grinding poverty amidst the Contra War, the Nicas harnessed their tenacity and alegría, their ingrained love of life. For me, it was a chance to see and be part of a genuine revolution, even including participation in a neighborhood militia. The closest I came to armed struggle was jamming an antique M1 rifle during an evening militia practice. While on guard, we heard noise that turned out to be a mix of family feud and drunken brawl. My other warlike experience was the loud bang of mangoes falling on our zinc roof. Bang! The first time I heard it, I thought the war had finally landed in Managua. I also traveled up to the mountains where the Sandinista guerrillas had built their revolutionary bases, but by the time I got there in 1987, the purpose was to celebrate earlier victories. That was beautiful enough, and my hosts made it sort of real by stowing me in the back of a troop truck where I fell asleep, giving them the chance to scare me awake with a fake emergency. I wasn't exactly Che Guevara. Ordinary life in Nicaragua was an education in itself. As part of the volunteer staff at the newspaper, I received the weekly ration of rice and beans as everyone else. It was a great opportunity to slim down while developing a taste for local herbs and spices. Another internationalist friend and I pooled resources to buy a Honda 50 motorbike, which I used to get to the local market and shop with the local people. Unfortunately, my friend John Files lost his life on the motorbike in a highway accident a few months after we bought it. This tragedy moved the Barricada editors to reach out to John's mother with condolences and emotional support. John was from Canada. His friends there founded a John Files Brigade to carry on solidarity with Canada, with Nicaragua in his name. That was a reminder of Ben Linder, the young University of Washington engineer who was killed by Contras while constructing a hydroelectric micro dam in the mountains of Jinotega, close to where Sandinista guerrillas had first fought. After Ben's murder, President Daniel Ortega shouldered his coffin in a procession after speaking at his funeral. The guest house I stayed in when I first went to Managua with Technica was named the Ben Linder House. I saw several other fatal motorbike accidents during my stay in Nicaragua, but I still loved riding and was luckier than John. But one night, I finally learned my lesson when I borrowed another friend's bigger bike, a Honda 750, for an evening joyride after a few traguitos of excellent Nicaraguan Flor de Caña rum. I let the front wheel graze a street divider and dumped the bike. An ambulance brought me to a local hospital where Cuban doctors moved El Internacionalista to the front of the line. They found I had a dislocated collarbone, which they put in a brace and sent me home with the admonition to hacer el amor boca arriba, that is, make love face up, for at least 2 weeks. I tried heroically to comply. Nicaragua was easy to love. The national police called themselves the Sentinels of the People's Happiness, Centinelas de la Alegría del Pueblo. When I was pulled over for traffic infractions, they were always polite as they confiscated my license, letting me know I could pick it up several days later. Gracias, compañero. All the main leaders were generally known by their first names. There was a mystique about the 1979 insurrection that toppled the Somoza dictatorship. Somoza, whom President Roosevelt, FDR, referred to as a son of a bitch, but our son of a bitch, was easy to hate. The Sandinista anthem was inspiring. My favorite line was, Luchamos contra el Yankee, enemigo de la humanidad. We fight against the Yankee, enemy of humanity. My hosts often cast a worried glance my way as I sang with customary gusto. This line was highly appropriate. Augusto Cesar Sandino was called a bandit by the U.S. in 1927 when he led a rebellion against the constant U.S. military occupation during the so-called Banana Wars that began in 1898. Democracy in Central America for the U.S. was nothing more than freedom for the United Fruit Company to exploit the local workers and take tons of bananas out at whatever price they wanted. To the U.S., a bandit was anyone who would fight against that arrangement. Sandino was assassinated in 1934 by the National Guard forces of Anastasio Somoza, who then ruled with strong U.S. backing until the Sandinista insurrection of 1979. The Sandinista revolution was one of several in the region. These revolutions made me believe Vietnam's victory was spreading. I should have realized Ronald Reagan would not just stand by allowing America's backyard to be liberated. In 1982, Reagan sent the Marines and Air Force to crush Grenada's New Jewel endeavor for welfare, education, and liberation, or New Jewel movement. Reagan then boasted that America's back after this successful intervention. Grenada is an island nation with a population of about 100,000 off the coast of Venezuela. Protests at the time were muted. In Central America, Reagan used proxies to fight his counter-revolution. Military fascists who trained at the School of the Americas in Georgia used death squads in El Salvador and Guatemala to slaughter tens of thousands of peasants, as well as a number of North American Catholic nuns and the Archbishop of San Salvador. In Nicaragua, the U.S.-supported Contras, dubbed freedom fighters by Reagan, spread terror in the countryside, trying to reverse the Sandinista gains. I'm going to stop there for a brief break to help you catch your breath, and I'll carry on with the next section of this chapter when we come back. Thanks for your attention. See you soon.